Okay, let me start over. I heard that you couldn't hear me. So I'm Danielle Varda. Welcome to our August Network Leadership from the Field webinar. I am an associate professor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and also a co-director at the Center on Network Science, as well as the CEO of Visible Network Labs. It's a pleasure to get to introduce today Leah Perkinson, who is our speaker. You are going to love her as much as we do, and you will learn so much. There she is. So I'm going to just talk about a couple of housekeeping things, explain what we're doing and why we do it. First of all, I want to say, if you are in the chat room, please do an intro. Tell us who you are, why you're interested in networks, evaluation, leadership, whatever it is. I can promise you it's a great thing to do. We've had people end up with funded projects by meeting each other in our chat room. So don't be shy, put your name in there and get to know one another. If you have questions for Leah during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting. And then if you have questions about your technology, you can't hear, that's how I just found out you couldn't hear me, those kinds of things, put that in the chat box, and that will let Alex, who's on the call with us managing things, Alex, kind of keep up with you and provide the TA that you need to participate. So those are kind of our processes. The way that this is going to work, I'm going to do a little bit of background on us and why we do this, talk about our upcoming events. We love to do things a little bit informally around here. And one of the things that we realized as we have been doing our work in networks over the years is that we get to meet really awesome people. And we started to feel a little selfish, like we were getting to know all of these people out in the world and not really getting to share that with other people. So this webinar is a learning webinar and important for us to understand, but as important, we think, is for you to get to know the people behind the projects. And so I'll start out the webinar with a few questions for Leah, a little bit of a short interview so you can get to know her. So it's not just here's some slides and her project, but you can get to know why we think she's so amazing and what she's doing. So you'll see that. I'm going to put some questions up first. So let me just go through these background slides just to get started. So I like to talk a little bit about who we are at Visible Network Labs and the Center on Network Science. We do this work because we believe that health and well-being are rooted in supportive connections. And for us, our call to action is to use a network science lens and provide training, opportunities for collaborative innovation and technology-based tools to help people leverage network science and strengthen their supportive connections and improve the outcomes of their work. So for us, that means doing stuff at the personal network level where we help really understand the social support networks of people, all the way up to big national and state, local networks, which we'll hear a lot about from Leah today, on trying to really build capacity in communities for people to be able to do this work. So we believe we have stumbled upon something really cool, and we just really want to share it with the world. And so that's why we do things like these webinars. I will talk just a little bit for a second about us. This is our team. I always want to give credit for the people behind all of the work. We have these awesome network science fellows. We have interns from Girls Inc., and just a great group of people behind all of this work. Actually, we have 2 new people who aren't even on this slide. So, and one of these days I might convince Leah to come join our team too. We are the home of the Partner Platform, which is a place where you can measure and monitor collaborative activity in your organizations over time. It's this awesome interactive place where you can collect data, look at it in a network way. So go on to partnertool.net, you'll find out more about that. But that's only one of the things we do. We work on ways that you can collect data through either the partner tool, which is interorganizational whole network analysis, or our person-centered network app, which lets you use an app to collect data from people in their personal networks. But we also provide ways that you can analyze that data. So there's data dashboards and reporting. We do a lot of consulting services. So we work with very small organizations and folks from pro bono work all the way up to the thing that keeps our lights on, which are big projects with folks like Annie Casey Foundation and the Gates Foundation and Robert Wood Johnson and folks like that. And then finally, we have our learning lab where we work on providing the support to make sense of all of this. So that's where these webinars fall in. We did a lot of work to help people get access to getting data that they need to be able to really understand their networks. But then we really started to deeply understand that people needed help understanding and building their skills to interpret it and just to build their network leadership overall, to really make impacts in their communities. So we have a forum and we do these labs and things like that. And I'll talk about some upcoming events in the lab in just a second. I like to do a little bit of an overview of what network leadership is. So network leadership is a framework to help people who are part of cross-sector community efforts learn how to build, manage, and evaluate effective networks. Some things that are really important to us are these 7 core values. So this is something we've worked on over the years, and we do like to draw them out because network leadership can sound like it's about you and what you do, but we actually believe it's a different kind of level of thinking and working together. So first and foremost, network leadership is community and culturally sensitive. We'll never give a webinar that is like the 5 things every community needs to do to make a network work. It's just not our way. We believe communities are different. They have different histories of working together. They just interact in different ways, and they need different things. So the idea of network leadership is to find adaptive solutions to the problems that folks are having in doing this work out in the world. It's inclusive, which means it's not just for me or you, it's for all of our members of the network. We think people who are citizens, who are coming to the network, who want to participate, as well as those who are driving and leading it, all need network leadership skills. And the only way we're going to run a network well together is when we all engage in that and believe that we all need that capacity building together. It's adaptive in ways I just talked about. Reflective, we believe that we really need to use data and continuously reflect and grow and change. These are living ecosystems that are constantly changing. I just jumped off a call where we were talking about whether measuring a network over time, if it's okay if that network changed size over time. And my response always is, of course, networks are dynamic and they're supposed to. So that's what we, think about how to deal with that stuff. But we really believe network leadership should be skill-based. So this is not just here's to learn why we should do networking, but more importantly, how. How do we tackle and do those hard skills? So someone like Leah is such an important part of our network of learning because she's been learning this stuff and has so many awesome skills you're going to learn about today. And I think that she's a great reflection of what network leaders are out in the world. We do use this framework of building, managing, and evaluating effective networks. So that's kind of where our whole curriculum, all of our competencies fall into. So building networks, there's different things people are trying to work on around being inclusive and creating cultures of collaboration. Managing networks is like, what do I do now that I have one? And evaluating networks is really learning about the network and telling that story and constantly growing and changing based on that reflection. Couple of just quick last things. Our September webinar is going to be held on September 26th with Pedja from Rethink Health and the Ripple Foundation. The title is Building Capacity for Community Networks to Succeed at Health Systems Transformation. Pedja is this amazing person who has this long history of understanding networks from a very comparative international perspective, and then hitting the ground running, doing this work in communities. Just an amazing person. I met him at a breakfast one day, and I was like, I just want to sit here all day and talk, geek out on networks with you. So don't miss this talk if you're interested. We also have the Network Leadership Training Academy dates announced. So this is, I think, where we first met Leah. Maybe she was an attendee at our NLTA. May 18th to 20th in Denver. Actually, this is a little bit of a new announcement. We're going to add to it also a Network Innovation Summit. So for some of the folks who have come before and who might have already experienced some of the workshops and trainings that happen over those days, we're also going to hold a summit where we can really engage in our peer learning and that kind of work. So that's going to be our gathering of our network and community. It's going to be super fun. So we're going to change our dates a little bit, but it'll be around those. And then the NLTA is where you come and get workshops, learn skill building, and really, get involved. The best thing that you'll get out of that is meeting a lot of other people who do the kind of things that you do. The only thing that's not on here that I just wanted to mention is we do have, the thing I skipped. We do have a demo on September 18th if anyone is interested in learning more about our platform and our tools and stuff, so you can join that. And we're doing these open office hours the first Thursday of every month. You can look on our website where we're just going to talk with people. So if you have a project and you want to work on it and you're trying to figure out how to bound your list or you're trying to figure out how to manage your network, come on. If no one shows up, our team's going to be talking about our own projects and we're just going to turn it into a project meeting. So if you want to hear the VNL team work through some of our own issues of doing some of this work, come on. This is really just, and I'll be leading them. So, and I love talking, obviously. So it'll be a fun time. So you can join that. So here's how to find out more about all the things. And now I'm going to get to the good part, which is Leah. So Leah's going to be talking about evaluating collaboration from the ground up. So hello, Leah. Now you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Danielle. Hi, everybody.
Okay, so Leah, before I ask you a couple questions, you want to just do a quick intro of who you are and where you're from?
Sure. So my name's Leah Perkinson, and I work for an evaluation firm. I've worked for them for the past 3 years or so, 2.5 or so. And yeah, I'm an external evaluator. So when folks get money from the federal government, I am on their team. Basically, I work with their internal team, but we're also responsible for making sure that that money is being put to good use. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But so I live in Vermont, and I kind of go between Vermont and North Carolina. I'm in Chapel Hill right now. And yeah, I think I can fill in a lot that I didn't cover right now when I do my presentation.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the part where we get to go a little bit deeper with Leah and get to learn a little bit more about her. And so I do want to say Leah's attended a couple of our events, and which means we get to do not only work with her on Round Networks, but get to spend time, walking around Denver and going to dinners together and things like that as groups kind of hang out on our off time. And this is where I've really gotten to know Leah a little bit better and understood that, both the work that she does and also her passions outside of work and some interests she has in really building, networks and connections for people in all kinds of ways. So I wanted to draw some of that out. But first, Leah, my first question for you is, because we all want to know a little bit more about you. So I'm curious kind of about when your love for networks began and maybe what was your first aha moment when you knew that this was a great match for something that you wanted to do in your career?
Yeah, so I guess my love of networks started way before I even really knew what a network was, right? So I grew up in a really big family. There are 8 kids. And, I was on the younger part of those kids. I was number 6, and my twin was number 7. So, 8 kids and 7 donuts, well, somebody has to share. So I kind of got used to compromising and figuring out how to get what I needed by working with my brothers and sisters. And, from that point, I was just like, whoa, I know how to work with people. I know how to make sure everybody kind of gets what they want. And from, living in that house with all these kids. And so from there, I kind of just love to work with groups of people to get stuff done. There's that saying, if you want to go, If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group of people. And yeah, it'll take a little bit longer to get there, but that's always kind of been my approach. I always like to do things with other people. So then, I've always been part of teams, like sports teams, team sports. And then I've always gravitated towards work situations where there's a network of people trying to achieve a common goal. That's just what I've been attracted to. So I guess my love of networks in terms of evaluation kind of started when I went to the conference that Danielle was talking about in Denver a couple years ago. And I was like, okay, I kind of have a sense of what makes different networks effective, like intuitively. I think we all probably do, but I can't back that up. Each network's a little bit different in terms of what makes them really effective.
Mm.
So, after I learned a little bit about how to evaluate networks and kind of identify the essential elements of what makes, one network's heartbeat versus another network's, like what allows them to accomplish so much. When I learned about how to do that a couple or 3 years ago, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to learn how to do this better, because I believe that when we know what makes a network effective and most efficient in a particular setting, time, and place, then we're able to replicate that. And, we're all trying to do so much with limited resources that the more efficient we can be, the better. So, that's when I started really appreciating networks and evaluating them.
Awesome.
And
Cool. That is awesome. And I didn't even plant that. I didn't know that you would bring up the conference. So it's been so fun to work with people as they've gotten an aha moment around networks and network science. So I'm just going to ask one other question to save on time. I don't want to cut your presentation short. But as I've come to know you, so I think this is what maybe a little bit outside of what you're going to present. I'm not sure. So I'm going to ask it now. But as I've come to know you, I've learned a lot about your work with vulnerable populations, and in learning a lot about that work that you've been doing with people who may be more vulnerable than not. I've really admired your approach to want data to be able to help and improve and create tools for those people, while being really sensitive to how they will respond to being asked for data and being exposed in that way. And we've had, I don't know if you remember, we've had discussions on walks and stuff about like, how do you balance, like, what do you ask and how do you talk to people, and how do you like bring network connections together to people when there's some people that are not comfortable being so exposed out in the open, and then still being connected to networks of resources and things like that.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of, working with vulnerable populations, or trying to work with them in a way that's meaningful and advances what they're trying to do. I mean, the thing is I guess it's more of a lesson learned. I'm just trying to think. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of what example to share. So basically, when I was at the CDC in Atlanta, we did this awesome project. We looked at just the implementation of evidence-based interventions, and the types of adaptations that people were making to these interventions and why. So basically, we worked with a large network of practitioners who were implementing this one intervention, and collected all this data about the adaptations, the types of adaptations they were making, the reasons why, and all this. So anyway, what I remember is, and this intervention was for kids that were just, it was a youth violence prevention intervention. Okay, so the practitioners were working with, kids that were, maybe didn't have the best opportunities or living situations, and could really benefit from this particular intervention. So anyway, collected all this data, and I remember doing this presentation back to the practitioners, and the presentation was just about, here are the types of adaptations you're making, here are frequencies. And thinking back, now that was, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, thinking back, I'm just like, you know what, how is that actually going to help the practitioners work with these kids better? Make sure this intervention is still as effective as it can be, but still make adjustments. Like, what I was presenting was not, it was not, they couldn't apply it in any way. So I guess it's more of a lesson learned, just making sure that always checking yourself or checking myself and saying, what is the data that I'm bringing back actually going to be useful in terms of what they're trying to accomplish? So Danielle, I don't know if that totally answered your question, but I've really had to, it's really just been a reminder. Like, I know that I have to collect certain data because that's what the job description says, or whatever the grant requirements say. However, at the end of the day, let's make sure that folks are getting information that's useful to, and that the folks that are benefiting are the folks that, the kids who were receiving the intervention. So.
Awesome. Well, and for other folks who are interested in that, we had a presenter once named Jenna Bannon, who has a recorded webinar, who really talked about, like, in the network sense too, like how we have to be so careful about, like, collecting that data and exposing people, because that's the kind of the point of network, is to expose these connections together, while recognizing that, those kinds of connections, while needing to be useful, have all kinds of context around them that's hard. So if people are interested in that topic, there's a whole nother webinar on that too, where Jenna went really deep into those concepts. But I've always appreciated your thinking on that, Leah. So I'm going to turn it over to you now to do your presentation. I'm going to turn my video off while you do that. So I'm going to ask you to share your screen, and when you're ready, you can just get going.
Okay, so I'll actually just share my desktop here.
Perfect.
All right, and then slideshow.
There you go.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so just to kind of get everybody on the same page, what I was hoping to do over the next 20 minutes or so is kind of share 4 different examples of times when I've been managing, leading, and or evaluating networks in different settings, and obviously with different groups of people who want to achieve different things. And then also these 4 different examples are, each network is in kind of a different stage of development. So from, like, just starting out to firing on all cylinders, basically. So I guess, my hope is that, when I'm done talking, I want to talk less so that we all can talk more. My hope is that this will give you a sense of what the challenges were that I encountered in each of these situations, and then how one of the tools that I learned about, like the partner tool, would really have helped me address the challenges that came up in each of these 4 different examples, and maybe how the partner tool could help you address some challenges that you all face. So again, I'll talk about these 4 examples: leading, managing, and evaluating networks with local partners, with state partners, within and across states, and with national partners. Okay, so and it's also kind of cool because we're going to start with local, then state, then within and across state, then with national. And this is all sequential. Like, this is all starting about 12 years ago. And then we'll go to the present day. Okay, so I'll start maybe like 10 years ago or so, back in Asheville, North Carolina. That's Asheville. This is a city of about 80,000 people in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so what was happening is so I just got my master's of public health at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I got a new job at a local rape crisis agency. And, my family was out in North Carolina, in that part of North Carolina. So that's my niece, and then that's my brother and his wife and their 2 kids, my other nieces. So I was like, okay, this is all, the stars are aligning. This is a great reason to go out there. So I went out there and I started to work at Our Voice, Rape Crisis Center. This is our landing page, so I'm just going to read this. So in the pursuit of a community free of sexual violence, Our Voice serves all individuals in Buncombe County affected by sexual assault and abuse through counseling, advocacy, and education. So basically, okay, I had just gotten hired, and what was happening is there was a group of folks, a coordinated community response, and this is a team of people. This is the network. So we've got folks from all over the county, like from the sheriff's department, from the school districts, from the police department, from Parks and Rec, from the local domestic violence agency. So everybody coming together to try to figure out, okay, with limited time and resources, how can we most effectively and efficiently address and prevent sexual violence? So that was the network that I was coming in to manage. So we had just finished conducting a community assessment, like that had been going on for a year, and I just came in on the tail end of that. And the next step was to really have a community forum where we would present all the assessment results, where we would present, what's working well, what are opportunities for improvement, and then what are our priorities? Like, what are we going to do first, and who is actually going to take ownership of it? So again, here's the what. It was this coordinated community response. And here, I say I was kind of the new kid on the block because they had already just done all this work for about a year. They knew each other. I didn't really know them. And we needed to go into this community forum, like organizing all that. I think about 150 to 200 people ended up attending that. So I was here, meeting with these folks like once a week, and I had a lot to get done in a very short period of time. I felt a lot of pressure. I felt like I had to do. But, like it says, I was focused on the task at hand at the expense of trying to build relationships with the folks at the table and figure out, okay, what are their priorities? What do they really want to get out of this? And what do they have to offer? So I kind of feel like I had blinders on, and I wasn't really able just to take a step back and get a sense of all that and take the time to build relationships. I will say the success is, we did have the community forum, and folks did take ownership of different things, but could that forum have been more effective? Could people have felt like, they could have gotten more out of it? Yeah, probably. And so looking back, this is one example where I know that using the partner tool really could have helped. And I'll talk about that, like how exactly it could have helped after I go through the other three examples. Okay, so I went from working in this local agency, right, this local rape crisis agency, to moving to Durham, North Carolina, and working with our a state network. And this state network, it was through the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So basically, this is a statewide organization. I believe every state has a coalition, an umbrella organization like this, and their whole role is to support the local agencies in their state. So like the local domestic violence agencies. They advocate for legislation, they provide trainings, stuff like that. So we had a grant from the CDC to really, well, basically the charge was to figure out what you can do across your whole entire state to prevent intimate partner violence. So basically do an assessment, do a scan statewide, and then come up with a statewide plan to prevent intimate partner violence. So that's a really tall order. But, we had 5 years to do it, and we brought together a state steering committee. So that was made up of all these folks right here, like really great thought partners and thinkers and people who are really moving the needle in their own right in terms of preventing intimate partner violence, right? So, the thing is that unlike the local network that I was talking about, we're talking about a state, not a county. Like, we're talking about a state where, okay, we got to come up with this big, huge plan to figure out, how to, decrease intimate partner violence, prevent intimate partner. I mean, how do you do that on a state level when it's kind of hard to even figure out how to do that in one school, right? So there are a lot of challenges around this. So I was leading this network, the state steering committee. We were trying to figure out, what is the burden of IPV in North Carolina, and, what statewide prevention efforts will be most effective. Again, it's a really tough nut to crack. So here are the challenges, and we're on the state level. This work felt very squishy and abstract. And I'm a very concrete person. Like, I used to, before I went to the School of Public Health, I used to work in restaurants, coffee shops, bread bakeries, where it's like very outcome oriented. You did one thing, you put the dough in the oven, and then a loaf of bread comes out. Okay. So that's what I really was kind of used to. And this was not that. So anyway, as I was saying, these members were partners and consultants, but they were not doers. We had great ideas. For example, we wanted to integrate healthy relationship curricula into secondary and post-secondary institutions. But in order to do that, we kind of have to do a scan of what is already out there, what folks are already doing. And in order to do that scan, we have to have people who can actually do it. So, I felt a lot of pressure, even though I was just like the facilitator of the work. I really felt a lot of pressure to do things to demonstrate progress, because basically I did not know what counted as progress. So I was like, okay, maybe we just need to do this scan, create a product, and then we can show that to the CDC as that we're actually doing something, and our decisions about where we want to focus are actually based in a scan that we conducted. So what is a success? Oh yeah, we did the state plan, and I did work with a few grad students, like almost 10 over the course of a few years, and we were able to put products like this together. But again, the work was really squishy, and I didn't know that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, because again, I just didn't know how to track and measure progress. Yeah. So, okay, now let's fast forward maybe like 6 years or so to present day. So I work with a firm, Evergreen Evaluation and Consulting, and they're based up in Vermont. This is a photo of Montpelier, Vermont. And let's see, so basically what I do with Evergreen in one of the projects that I work on is I help evaluate state efforts. So these are different states that are basically working to provide teachers like that work in K through 12 schools, really ensuring that they know how to serve kids with disabilities, know how to give them equitable opportunities to learn. And in order to do that, what this involves is actually, changing the way that professors in schools of education teach these teacher candidates. Okay, ensuring that they're teaching best practices, how to create equitable opportunities for everybody, including kids with disabilities. And then, okay, so it's one thing to teach that to your teacher candidates, but it's another thing to put teeth to that and to actually require it, like as part of your licensure or certification. In order to teach in this state, you have you have to have learned X, Y, and Z, and then you have to demonstrate that you know these best practices and are implementing these best practices throughout the course of your teaching career. So, in order for that to happen, you've got to have professors from these institutions of higher education, and also folks that are in charge of licensure and certification. So these are folks from the State Department of Education coming together and actually making these changes to their curricula and to their state policies. So, when you think to the state group that I was just talking about in North Carolina, these state groups are kind of at a different stage of evolution, because they're actually making big changes. They're moving the needle. And these networks are called state leadership teams. So the successes here is that some state networks, some of these state leadership teams have been super, super successful. And here's the challenge, is that we just don't know what is that special sauce that is making these networks super effective, where they're changing practice, where kids are having more equitable opportunities to learn. So we know that they're successful. We have ideas about what makes them successful, but we need more types of evidence, more than anecdotal, more than experiential. We actually need some empirical evidence to say, here's the essential elements. And here are the things that kind of vary by setting. So here are the things that you absolutely have to have. And then here are the things that maybe are kind of optional. So that's kind of the evaluating networks within and across states. So that's one of the things I do now. And then the last little example that I'll share, I started this nonprofit, and I'm going to kind of make this quick because I want to show the video. So I started this nonprofit. I've been working on it for 2 years. It's called My Virtual Advocate. Eventually, it will be a website. Basically, it will offer a suite of services to individuals who've experienced sexual violence. So I'm forming an advisory committee, and it's going to include current, former, and future colleagues. This advisory board is really going to be the beating heart of the organization. These are experts in the field. These are practitioners, researchers, survivors of sexual violence, stakeholders, people who will affect and will be affected by the services that we offer. Anyway, the challenge is that, I want this advisory board to exist right now, but it doesn't. Okay, so because I haven't had the time to bring everybody together. I need people to attract people. So it's it's slow going. However, one of the successes is actually, let me just back up to another challenge is kind of like, what are the qualities and the characteristics? What are the types of people and organizations that I want to be on this advisory board? That's actually a question, and I don't necessarily have all those answers. Intuitively, I want these folks to be people that I get along with and can work well. But above and beyond that, what are the specific things that I'm looking for, and can I quantify that? For example, openness to discussion, reliability, follow through on what you say you're going to do. Because I need to be able to communicate that to the folks that I invite. These are the expectations. This is what we're looking for. And this is why you seem like a good fit. So let me actually move on here. Oh, that's the landing page. So one of the successes is, I do have this internal website for internal collaborators and potential funders. So I am making some progress, but I'm really going to be relying on the advisory board to inform the scope and sequence of the services that we provide. So again, having a good sense of the qualities and the characteristics of the folks that I want to invite is super important. Okay, so I learned about the partner tool, and this is a tool that I'm talking about, how it could address a lot of these challenges that I talked about in each of these 4 examples. I went to this annual conference that Danielle and team host in Denver every year. I attended this 2-day workshop that was a little bit smaller in Denver. And then I participated in a 3-part webinar series. Now, the evaluation firm I work for, Evergreen, they are very interested and invested in helping their clients track and measure outcomes, that result from collaboration. So I'm very fortunate because they're very supportive of all of this and have really facilitated me learning so much about how to evaluate networks. So so anyway, I feel lucky to be able to work there. So after I learned about all of this, I created this little video, because I was like, I want to share with people how this is working for me, like how I can use the partner tool, because the partner tool is kind of complex and there's a lot going on with it. I feel like I have learned so much that I can break it down in a way that might be easy to digest. Maybe not, we'll see, TBD. But let me show you this video that I put together. And I may actually need to, I really hope this will work. I hope you all will be able to hear this.
Yeah.
So Danielle, can you just send me a message if you can't hear it? Okay.
Yeah, I'll hear, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Leah.
Perfect.
Can you hear it?
Yep, it's perfect.
Oh,
hey,
good.
Leah, before you started, I'm going to interrupt for a second. So as we got to know Leah, one day Leah emailed our team and said, hey, I made this video. Do you all want to see it? So this is one of our favorite things about working with all of you all over the country, is that you all do cool stuff. And I was amazed that Leah put this together. So this is a little unprompted by us, but you'll see why we just think it's super cool. So go ahead, Leah.
Cool. Thanks, Danielle.
Part of several external evaluation teams, and I've worked in the nonprofit and for-profit sectors for about 20 years. I just started a nonprofit with a for-profit arm to help generate revenue. I'm planning to use the partner survey in each area of my work. So I'd like to talk about the survey, how it works, and what it can help us learn. Across the U.S., in state and local agencies, nonprofits, businesses, and other organizations, people are coming together to address big social problems like education, health equity, and other issues. They come together as teams to move the needle and make change happen. These teams can also be called networks. Social network analysis can help us measure the quality of relationships in your network and the progress you're making towards achieving outcomes. The Partner Survey is a social network analysis survey. It's designed to measure and monitor collaboration among organizations working together to achieve a common goal. Questions the survey can help answer about your network include: what is the quality of relationships in the network? Do inefficiencies exist? What models for collaboration work best? And which outcomes are related to the network's collaboration? When your network members take the partner survey, it can measure how often organizations in the network interact, the types of relationships in the network, are they cooperative, coordinated, or integrated, the resources that organizations are contributing, and network outcomes, and how successful the network's been at achieving these outcomes. The survey also looks at perceptions of value among members of the network. It does this by asking about the level of influence different network members bring to the work, the resources they share, and their involvement in different network efforts. The survey can also measure trust within the network. It asks about the extent to which network members follow through with what they say they'll do, the amount of mission congruence, and the extent to which network members are open to discussion. Survey results can tell you how network members are connected, how resources are leveraged, outcomes of collaboration, levels of trust, perceptions of value, and if you take it more than once, how all of this changes over time. Here's how it all works. Your network members will get a link to the survey. It will take them about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. It can be completed in multiple sittings. About 1 month will pass, and then they'll get a report that highlights the network's strengths, successes, and opportunities for growth. Learn more about the partner survey at visiblenetworklabs.com.
Okay. So yeah, I put that together because I was like, we need, I need a way to explain this to clients because it can be kind of complicated. Like, it's just kind of complex, and, obviously there's more to it. Like that final slide really made it a little bit more simple than it is in terms of how it actually all happens. But it's enough to get the idea across. So anyway, I learned how to do animated videos as part of my nonprofit adventure. And so let me get to, okay, so using the partner tool to address these challenges that I hope I kind of identified when I was going through each of these examples. So let me see here. So using the partner tool to address challenges, like if I had the partner survey to administer to these different groups of folks, these different networks, these are kind of the questions I would have been able to answer. So on the local level, with that coordinated community response, what is the quality of relationships across and within this network? Like, what is the state of the state? What am I getting into here? What do network members want? And what do they have to offer? Like, what can I leverage here? And then at the state level, with the state steering committee, when we're trying to come up with that statewide plan, it's like, it would have been great to try to figure out, okay, what does success look like and how do we get there? And guess what? How does our definition of success change over time? Because you can administer this survey, once every 6 months, once a year. And really, I think one of the biggest benefits of actually administering this survey in this situation would have really been to take the burden off of me to define what success is and to make it happen. Like, for whatever reason, I find myself, and I see other network managers and leaders kind of taking on the work that's actually the work of the network. So, and then across and within states, so with these state leadership teams who are trying to ensure that kids with disabilities have equitable opportunities to learn, okay, we can figure out as we administer the survey within state leadership teams and then to other state leadership teams over time, we can figre out like what makes these teams successful. What is true across the board? Like, is there a high level of trust across the group? Or is it that people are bringing lots of different complementary resources to the table? What exactly is it? So basically, what are the essential elements that need to be in place, and what elements might vary by state, setting, time, place? We don't know all that now, but it is something that we can learn. And then lastly, this national advisory group. So my advisory board for the nonprofit, not only can we use the partner survey to figure out, what are the qualities of this network? What are the levels of trust? What are the resources that people bring to the table? So not only can we evaluate that, but we can also use those indicators, those different things that we're measuring. So openness to discussion, reliability, we can use that as criteria for the types of folks that we want at the table. We want to ensure that they are bringing complementary resources to the table, that they are organizations that are known to be open to discussion. And then also, this is a thing I forgot to mention, is that right now I'm writing into my grants use of the partner tool to say, look, it's not that I just want money, $20,000 to bring everybody to this in-person meeting just so we can talk. We're actually going to be informing the scope and the sequence of these services. And this is how we're going to measure the work that we do and what we've been able to achieve as a group over time. So we're taking all that squishy stuff and making it real concrete so funders know that their money is being put to good use. And then, I guess, is that it? Yeah, it looks like that might be my last slide, but let me just double check here.
Hey, and Leah, as you're just finishing up, we want to have some time for questions, so we want to get started real soon. If anyone has questions, go ahead and drop them in there. There's already a few for you, so we only have a few more minutes. So as soon as you get done, let's start on those.
Yeah, I'm done. I mean, people can read these favorite things. I've already basically said it. It helps me quantify something that's very qualitative in nature, right? The partner tool does. It helps me begin to identify the factors that contribute to success across and within networks. And then it can help me demonstrate that limited funding is being put to good use. Yeah. So that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
And awesome. And there's a couple of folks that have asked in the chat about your video and whether it's public or not. We hadn't really talked about that.
Yeah. So what I can do, actually, I think anybody with the link can look at it. So let me just copy and paste the link and share it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I put my video back on. So let's go through some. Thanks for doing that. And Leah really tapped into something that's so important, is that when you're doing a network evaluation, getting the buy-in of the people who you want to get information from, which is like the people in the network, is so important, not only to include them in the process in a real participatory and engaged approach, but to help them understand the process and that there's going to be a value at the end for them. So when we do evaluations, we always make sure to give some of the results back to the community. And that video for us has been so awesome because it is, networks and are complex and they're complex systems. And so what Leah's done there is really simplified it. And one of the really nice things is, it's funny because I'm just going to call you out. Sarah Sprung from my team just texted me and said, Leah really gets it. So I think the reason we believe that is because there's a way you can evaluate networks, and a lot of people do this with a lot of mapping, a lot of network maps. And the maps are awesome, and they're great conversation starters, and they're kind of like the front cover of your network story. But what you really highlight in all of this is the quality of the data behind it that lets you understand relationships, the trust and value between partners, and all of that really kind of good, high quality data that's going to give you information to turn those, into action strategies and steps and things like that. So we can kind of use graphics for that, but really the approach that we use is really getting high quality data that can measure those quality of connections to do the kind of work, and then disseminate it out to your partners, your funders, and others. But let me go into the questions here. So, okay, so I'm going to just read through a few of them here. So, does the partner tool articulate qualities and characteristics? And then another question I'm going to combine with this one says, what survey questions are used for relationship quality and how do you display the data? We can tag team some of these if you want, Leah, on some of the answers, but I'm going to let you talk about that first. I think the question here, and it's one I get a lot, is how do you actually measure the quality of a relationship?
Yeah, so
what characteristics?
And I'm going to bounce it back to you, but I'll start. Like, that is such a good question, and it is kind of like, okay, is this? Yeah, how do you know what are the most important things to have in a network that make a network the most effective and efficient? And I will just say, I think it's really cool how you came up with the indicators, Danielle, like just through the formative research. And like I'm going to let you take it from here, but all of the indicators, like basically openness to discussion, reliability, like those really resonate with me. They seem really important. And I kind of can't identify other additional measures that would be important to capture that aren't already captured. So I'll let you take it from there, Danielle.
Well, what I will say is the partner tool, we didn't really talk about this because we do demos on this and stuff. It's actually it's a survey, a validated 19-question survey that people can customize. You can use those 19 questions, and we believe those questions are the right ones to really do all of this network evaluation work on the other side that Leah articulated so well, are the problems and the needs that for that. You can also take it down to 1 question. You can take it up to 30 questions. So it's like a survey monkey for networks. But it comes with this 19-question validated survey, which we did create using a whole bunch of qualitative work about 12 years ago. And in that, what's really kind of trademark of the partner tool are these trust and value questions that are scaled. So trust is you'll never ask in the survey to ask a partner to rate another partner on how much they trust them. It's just too vague. It's too hard to understand. But they'll be asked to rate them on their reliability, mission congruence, and openness to discussion. And in a lot of qualitative work, we learned that those were the 3 key indicators in these cross-sector networks that people would talk about when you asked them to know that, how they knew trust existed. So they'll rate them on that. And then on value, because people say that's why they engage in networks, because of the value of partnerships, it's also a scale that looks at power and influence. I'm just blanking. Power and influence, time commitment, and resource contribution. So 12 years of the same scale. And partners rate each other. And then those measures show up as both links amongst members in a network map. And then they also show up as attributes, so you can average them and really look at, these are the perceptions that partners have of each other. And I always say there's no real measure of a relationship except the perceptions we have of each other. I mean, we're all in a webinar together, so we can track that. But what does that tell us? That we all attended a webinar? But if we can understand the perceptions of trust and value that we have of each other, we have so much knowledge and information, and that knowledge and information can help us then manage those relationships and leverage things. We can figure out where there's a lot of redundancy and people are kind of being overtapped in the network. So we really focus on the quality of connections in those measures, and then add into it measures of, there's questions about success and outcomes and things like that. So 90% of the people who use the survey, it's been used in 45 countries, I think, translated in 5 languages, and all over the US, people use that 19-question survey about 90% of the time with modifications, and then they change it. So, and if you're more interested on the partner tool, we have that demo on September 18th, and we'll show you how to use it. And what's awesome about it is it's not just a survey. No matter what questions you change, there's a whole data dashboard. So it just links to that. So it doesn't matter what you change. It doesn't matter how you alter it. It knows that you're doing that. And so you can do all your network mapping and all your graphs and scores, and then report. You can just pull out, you just hit a button and it takes a picture of the map, and then you can put it into your report. That's actually a new feature, Leah, I don't know if you know, that we have in there now, and even collaborate with others and things like that. So it's made to be really easy for you all, but not just easy, not just beautiful maps, but really high quality data that we're guiding you to help put in. So so there's that. So sorry, I just kind of went off on that. I obviously get excited about that. Here's a question for you, Leah, in our last few minutes. We'll go over just a minute or two here for anyone who's still on. In general, what characteristics or qualities make a great community partner, and what makes a bad partner?
Oh, oh man. Well, I guess anybody that's willing to partner. Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, I guess. I will say that it has been challenging to work with folks that, and really, this is people, not organizations, right? it's been most challenging to work on any level with folks who have who already have kind of an agenda in mind, or their vision for what everything needs to look like, and kind of, just not very flexible or adaptive. I kind of feel like in order to be open, right, open to discussion, you have to have like a level of self-awareness where you know that other people have other things to say that are equally as important as what you want to contribute. So basically, a real willingness to give equal speaking time and input to other people is what makes a great community partner. Knowing and recognizing, okay, yeah, we all have the same vision for what we want to accomplish. That's first. Second, knowing that we all probably have different ideas about how to get there. And then third is what makes a good community partner is recognizing there's going to have to be compromise, and it will take time and it will be frustrating, but it will be worth it at the end of the day. We'll eventually get to where we want to go as a group. Okay, so I don't know if I really answered that question very well, but it was a great question.
I'll add one thing to it. Every network will have what we think are bad partners. Just like I teach in a university. Every class I'm like, that's a problem person. We have these things, but I think what you're saying is, it's better to include the diverse thought and thinking, because that's what a network's all about. It helps us, that's the purpose of it, that we're not trying to all be in one bubble and go along with the same thing. We want these different voices in there as well. But something I'd say from a network leadership and network science lens is a key component, a number one key principle in networks is that more is not always better. So we feel like we always have to have everyone at the table. I'll do another webinar sometime on the life cycle of sustainable networks. And I'll show you that, you start a network by getting everyone together. You build this network where everyone's there. The sustainable network lets people go. The sustainable network lets people know what their role is, when they're going to play it, and asks them to come, and lets everyone kind of decide when to be there. Those are the sustainable networks, which means if someone doesn't really want to be there, we let them not. So there's this feeling like we're going to miss out, or we have to be inclusive all the time. There's a little bit of strategy that I think data can help us understand, that can help us move into answering those kinds of problems. Here's something that two people have asked about. There's still a number of folks on the webinar, so if it's okay with you, Leah, we'll just answer them. If folks drop off, we can cut them out and put them in the email. But since a few folks are there, can these networking evaluation efforts incorporate asset-based community development premises and concerns? Two people asked about that.
I mean, my quick answer to that is the partner survey, like Danielle was saying, it's flexible. So you can include different questions that get at, assets that try to assess the extent to which different assets are in place, or what are, the priority, what are the most important assets that this group wants to build upon or leverage, and what needs to happen first. So that's my quick answer, Danielle.
Yeah, and I think I have a feeling that hopefully you all don't mind me calling you out. Dana and Brian asked this question. I have a feeling that you all might know more about ABCD than I might, and so this is where I might flub up on this. But what we do a lot is either we know that when we send out a survey or questions to a network or a community, you kind of have one shot. You don't want to ping them too many times, right? People are so busy, and we need to respect that. And so we try to make the survey short. We try to make them easy to answer. So, we sometimes add things like Darren Hicks's process quality working together scale, an amazing scale. If you want that, we'll probably put it in the email follow-up. We add that in sometimes, but they can get kind of long. So another option is if we have data, we can triangulate the data. So this is something our team's gotten really good at. Someone else asked something about over time. Is really trying to make sense of these kinds of complex systems as they change over time, and also how to incorporate things like asset-based mapping. So what we do is we do ask a question in the survey that says, what resources can you contribute? And then we really try to understand how resources are embedded in relationships in networks. And then we also ask people either what they are trying to accomplish or what outcomes they want to achieve. So try to get at kind of the needs part of it. So what we are trying to do is map on how to leverage these relationships to leverage the most amount of resources, but then also to address the needs that are existing and that communities have identified. And again, I can't say enough that more is not always better. Just forming a network isn't the solution, but being able to manage those resources in a way to leverage those relationships is what starts to make the impact. So just having more connections is not going to make an impact. It's what you do with those connections. So let's see, there's a few more. Let's see, to what extent does the partner tool calibrate for the stage of development of a network it's at, starting versus more established? So I can, if it's okay, Leah, I'll answer this partner question. The partner tool doesn't actually do the thing, right? It's a measurement tool. But it can, if you know that your network is at a different stage in time, it can help you gather that information, and then you know that you're at different points in time. So that's just a little bit of a nuance there. But so what's really amazing about it is I just talked about this framework for the life cycle of a sustainable network. So we know that networks need to start looking different as they go through that life cycle. And at the place where most networks live almost forever, which is everyone's meeting all the time. The picture of the network is like a spider web. It's all the nodes and all the lines. And that's where networks like stay forever. That's only one part of the evolution of that group. What needs to happen next is some delineation of what's important, right, and how to leverage those. We can't sustain networks at that level of collaboration for very long. People fade, our funders go away, the backbone gets a new job. So we need to figure out, how does this group self-organize? How does this group figure out who are the valuable and who perceives who as valuable and trusted to take on different roles, so that we can start. And what are the needs of that network, so we can maybe, I'm struggling without my pictures, without the, to figure out how to come into subgroups. So the partner tool can kind of help you map that out and look at those stages. And if you use that framework, you can start to see if, you're kind of moving in the direction. But the goal is, we use this thing called our quality improvement framework, where networks don't have like a p-value that everybody should know when they see the network information. Instead, each network is different, and we need to set the goals and intentions of that network, and then measure the network. And what that lets us do, so we set like, what's the ideal network? We can measure the network, and what that lets us do is set some action steps and strategies to get from where we are to where we want to be. That's the way that we do network evaluations. And so there was another question in here actually that asked, I have to read through them, like, how do you get past like knowing the process and turning it into action? So that's one of our goals, is to I always say every data point in your data collection should turn into an action step, an action strategy. So we use those, and that's one way, is that we say, if our intention is to diversify, breadth, if our intention is to increase trust, or maybe we don't need to increase trust, but because we're reaching our outcomes, let's set that ahead of time, measure it, and then we can really map on a network strategy based on the data. So let's see. Good. I just answered this question, I think. How does the tool account for missing data and the ability to get responses from participants? The average response rate in a partner survey is about 70%, so it's very high. But when you're surveying networks, it's usually people who have something already that draws them together. So it's different from a random survey of folks. But the survey needs to be short, easy to use. It needs to have really good measures in it, so that will help. So response rates, what we do is, in the demo we'll show you, we have a very specific 3-week plan for collecting data. I'll just say it real quick. We always launch a survey on a Monday. The Friday before, we send a note out that says it's coming. Monday, we launch it. We send 3, maybe a 4th reminder during the 2-week time frame that we give people. On the Friday of the 2nd week, we always announce that it's open for 1 more week. That's our methodology that week. Sometimes we'll even send them a preliminary map of the network to show them what's happening and what's growing and what we're learning, and that might encourage them. People don't want to be in a map that they did not answer questions about. So that encourages people to answer questions as well. But that methodology has produced these 70 to 100% response rates. It's really rare that we get a lot under that. We can share that as well in a follow-up. So just a couple more here. Sorry, Leah, I'm running through them quick. Are the questions about perceptions of the network whole or about each relationship? That's a good question. So the perceptions are measured at the dyadic level. Every member of the network answers it about, there's a question that is like a data elimination question. So if they see all the partners, they're asked which of the partners they connect to, and then the program knows to only ask the next set of relational questions about those. So they answer at the dyadic level, which is amazing data to have. On the back end, you might not always want to share it with your network. But it's measured that way, and then you can roll it up to we roll them up to whole network scores. You can do it, but you want to collect it at the dyadic level, and that's how you'd roll it up to the whole network level. Okay, I think I have just one more here. For a poor functioning network, how might you use the results to help them improve collaboration? I have a couple of thoughts on that, but do you have any experience, Leah, maybe thinking about how data has helped a collaboration recover from its struggling phase?
Let me think about it while you go ahead.
Okay. I have one really specific example, which was a data one. So, and it includes those trust and value questions. I got a call one day from someone who said, we are doing everything right. We have funding, we have all the partners at the table, everyone's bought in, and we are not moving the needle. Their outcomes, nothing was happening. So all they were doing was having lunch together once a month, and people were getting frustrated, obviously. So what happened was, and we talked about her using data in order to help her think through that. So they did, and they used that tool, and what she found was that the people who they had put in charge of the network, which were the very usual suspects, and they are rated very high on power and influence, were also rated pretty low by their partners on time commitment and resource contribution. So on the value scale, it can vary in different ways. They were rated really high on the things that we naturally think we need in our network leadership, which are these powerful and influential people. And they were in a rural community, which was key too, which meant that those powerful and influential people were also the powerful and influential people running every single network in the community. So what happens is we tend, and we all do it, it's just natural, we tend to look for leadership that's powerful and influential, and then we assign them those roles. So with this, what she did is she said, what happened is they realized that the people leading this network had no time to do it. They were fragmented and it wasn't working. So what they did is they identified those people who were perceived as having really good time commitment, a real commitment to the network. And she told me they were going to have a heart-to-heart, and they were going to have to tell those folks in charge who are used to being in charge that they were going to kind of shift and ask other people to engage in some shared governance, shared leadership, shared facilitation, and come in and take on some of those roles. And then 6 months later, they looked at things and they saw a great improvement. Because what they did is networks have all these assumptions that we follow all of the time that are like more is better, that certain people should be leaders and things like that. What's amazing about networks is that they're full of human relationships that are quirky and nuanced. And we have to try to understand those perceptions so that we can really take advantage of perceptions that are unseen, they're invisible, so that we can leverage that for strength. So we've seen networks come around by having a heart-to-heart about who's in charge and really maybe drawing on some of those people that wouldn't be your normal leaders to step into leadership roles. This is one example. Did you have any others, Leah? I don't want to put you on the spot.
That's great. That's great, Danielle. Yeah.
So you can tell I'm an enormous network geek. Leah is so modest and almost quiet about networks compared to me, but it's been so fun, Leah, to get to know you and learn from you about the work that you're doing. I hope you all agree with us on that. We'll send out a video recording of this and all the resources we just threw out. We love these kinds of discussions and informal ways of talking to folks. So reach out to us. I'm sure Leah is open to being contacted. Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I thought she would. Yeah, and just stay part of our community. I was looking through the chat, and oh my gosh, the people who signed up and just introduced themselves on this call are amazing people. Probably any one of you could be our presenters. And you'll notice over time we tap into people, and we try to get really on the ground. It's not the shiny, we're not looking for the one that everyone knows. We're looking for the folks that, we really can share their work that they're doing on the ground that is making huge impacts, almost in ways that don't get recognized enough. So thanks, Leah, so much for joining. I appreciate all your preparation and time today. Thanks, everyone, for coming on, and we'll all stay connected.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.